Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're not just, rereading a beloved classic. We're taking a high-powered sonic stan of it. We're plunging into select chapters of J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, a story many of you know intimately, probably backwards and forwards, but our mission, well, it's to unearth the surprising facts, maybe challenge some of those long-held assumptions, and hopefully gain a truly fresh, well-informed perspective on this pivotal story. So forget what you think you know. Get ready to have your perceptions, perhaps, a little bit, well-enchanted.
And that's exactly the beauty of this material, isn't it? Even narratives we feel we know by heart, they still offer just boundless layers for new insights, living just beneath the surface. These chapters are especially rich, laying critical groundwork from, well, Harry's tumultuous summer with the Dursleys to the chilling, immediate mystery surrounding Sirius Black's impossible escape from Azkaban. They introduce elements that fundamentally redefine Harry's understanding of his world and, crucially, his own past. Our goal today is really to look past the obvious plot points and, connect these dots in ways you might truly not have considered before, prompting you to see these familiar events with completely fresh eyes.
Okay, so let's not even ease into this. Let's dive straight in with a truly provocative question, kind of a hot take that jumps right out from the very first chapter. What if magic in this world isn't just about raw power, but something far more nuanced, something akin to, well, preference? You might be thinking, what on earth are you talking about? But seriously, consider this. In Chapter 1, Harry is secretly doing his homework, right? Tucked under the blankets, engrossed in a history of magic. He's writing an essay on witch burning in the 14th century was completely pointless to discuss. Okay. And then we get this absolutely incredible snippet of historical wizarding truth. It describes how non-magic people, more commonly known as muggles, were particularly afraid of magic in medieval times, but not very good at recognizing it. On the rare occasion that they did catch a real witch or wizard, burning had no effect whatsoever. The witch or wizard would perform a basic flame-freezing charm and then pretend to shriek with pain while enjoying a gentle tickling sensation.
Gentle tickling sensation.
Right. And it doesn't stop there. It specifically mentions a witch named Wendelin the Weird who enjoyed being burned so much that she allowed herself to be caught no less than 47 times in various disguises. 47 times. This isn't just about, a magical defense shield. It's a profound, almost whimsical subversion of really terrifying historical narrative. Magic isn't simply a means to escape Muggle control. It's about, and this is the kicker, enjoying the process of defying it. It's a preference for a particular kind of interaction, a unique, almost playful resistance to being oppressed. It really challenges the very nature of what we think magic is for.
Oh, absolutely. That detail, placed so early in the book, is just fascinating because it immediately establishes the inherent resilience of magic, and by extension, Harry himself, against mundane oppression. It's not just a physical defense, it speaks to a fundamental and almost comical disconnect in understanding between the magical and Muggle worlds. It's like they're operating on completely different wavelengths. The Muggles, in their ignorance, try to impose their will, but magic just sort of sidesteps it, almost with a wink and a smile. And you see this same futile, misunderstanding-driven effort perfectly mirrored in the Dursleys' treatment of Harry. They have what the text calls that very medieval attitude toward magic, right?
Yeah.
Constantly hoping that if they kept Harry as downtrodden as possible, they would be able to squash the magic out of him.
Yeah, you can just squeeze it out of him.
Exactly. Their attempts to lock away Harry's spellbooks, wand, cauldron, and broomstick are, in their own pathetic way, just as ineffective as Muggle attempts to burn witches. It's the same kind of futility. The inherent magic within Harry, his true magical nature, it simply cannot be squashed, much like Wendelin's enjoyment of the flame. It's a powerful and subtle statement right at the outset about the persistence of true identity and inherent nature against those who wish to suppress it. It almost serves as like a microcosm for Harry's entire journey, constantly resisting attempts to fit him into a box, whether it's by the Dursleys or later, maybe even by destiny itself.
That's such a brilliant parallel, yeah. It immediately sets the stage for a story where what you think you know or what society tells you isn't necessarily the truth. And this very idea of misperception leads us seamlessly into the broader thematic landscape of this book. Beyond the immediate plot of, an escaped prisoner, what profound philosophical, moral, or societal ideas are really simmering beneath the surface here? For me, the absolute bedrock of this narrative is perception versus reality and the profound interplay of truth versus lies. The entire central mystery of Sirius Black just revolves around this. He's believed by everyone in the wizarding world, or almost everyone, to be a mass murderer and a traitor, Voldemort's right-hand man who murdered 13 people with a single curse. That's the story.
The official story.
Exactly, the official story. And what's the primary source of this pervasive misinformation? The Daily Prophet. It consistently shapes public opinion, proclaiming him mad, dangerous, and universally reviled. Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, he just epitomizes blind acceptance. He immediately embraces this official story without a shred of critical inquiry. He doesn't just believe it, he actively perpetuates it. And then, of course, we have Professor Snape, whose deep-seated, intensely personal bias against Black is so ingrained that he literally cannot, or perhaps will not, see any other possibility. He even tells Dumbledore with absolute conviction, "I've told the headmaster again and again that you're helping your old friend Black into the castle, Lupin, and here's the proof." This isn't just, a simple misunderstanding. It's a powerful narrative about how easily truth can be constructed, manipulated, and rigidly held onto, even when you're faced with contradictory evidence. It's a cautionary tale about the weight of public opinion and the danger of narratives we're just told.
You really hit on a crucial point there about the construction of truth. And this theme, it's further complicated by how characters' personal histories and deeply ingrained prejudices profoundly color their present judgments. Snape's past with James Potter and Sirius Black is the most stark example, isn't it? His intense, simmering resentment makes it almost impossible for him to consider any alternative to Black's guilt, even when Harry and Hermione present compelling first-hand evidence later on. For Snape, new information isn't used to revise his belief, it's just twisted to fit his pre-existing conviction. Everything confirms what he already knows.
Right, confirmation bias writ large.
Totally. And Fudge also perfectly embodies this, perhaps less maliciously than Snape, but, equally destructively in its own way. He dismisses Harry and Hermione's eyewitness testimony, patronizingly saying things like, Harry, you're very confused. You've been through a dreadful ordeal. Lie back down. Now we've got everything under control. For him, maintaining the establishment of narratives and public order is just far more convenient than investigating a potentially inconvenient, disruptive truth that would undermine his authority. It's easier not to rock the boat.
Yeah, absolutely. Convenience over truth.
And alongside that, we see a pervasive theme of fear and its manifestations. The collective fear of Sirius Black, it impacts the entire magical community. It leads to these extreme measures, like the Dementors guarding Hogwarts, which is just, wow.
Putting soul-sucking guards at a school. Yeah.
Exactly. This widespread fear also shapes the responses of ministry officials like Fudge, who doesn't hesitate to inform the Muggle Prime Minister that Black is mad. He's a danger to anyone who crosses him, magic or Muggle. This isn't just factual reporting, it's actively spreading fear to maintain control, maybe even justify the extreme measures. And perhaps most viscerally, we experience the psychological manifestation of this fear through the Dementors' effect on Harry, drawing out his deepest terrors and replaying his parents' death in just excruciating detail. It's a really potent exploration of how fear can be weaponized, how it can cripple rational thought, and how it can be used ultimately to control a populace.
The Dementors, as you say, are truly terrifying, a physical manifestation of fear and despair. And that flows directly into another critical thematic undercurrent here: freedom and confinement. Harry's summer with the Dursleys is just a textbook example of unjust confinement, isn't it? He's literally doing his homework in secret, the blankets drawn right over his head like a tent, because the Dursleys lock away Harry's spellbooks, wand, cauldron, and broomstick. He's physically and emotionally trapped, desperately trying to carve out just a sliver of freedom within their suffocating restrictions. The wizarding world, in contrast, offers him this boundless sense of liberation, of potential. And then we have Azkaban itself, described as a fortress from which escape is impossible, highlighting the truly severe and, dehumanizing nature of wizarding imprisonment. Sirius Black's impossible escape is what ignites the entire plot, isn't it? And his long, unjust confinement and subsequent desperate flight for true freedom are just central to the whole story. It compels us, the readers, to question what true freedom looks like and what it means to be confined, whether by physical bars or the Dursleys' psychological oppression, or even by society's unexamined judgments.
And tying right into that struggle for freedom is the pervasive theme of family and belonging. Harry's constant, profound search for family and warmth is vividly contrasted throughout these opening chapters. It's heartbreaking, really. The Dursleys' disdain is palpable right from the very beginning. It's this cold, calculated rejection. Far from wishing Harry a happy birthday, none of the Dursleys made any sign that they had noticed Harry enter the room. They just ignore him. They embody complete and utter denial of him and his magical heritage.
Total erasure.
Exactly. In stark, heartwarming contrast, the Weasleys offer him immediate, unconditional inclusion. A true home, or the closest thing he's known. Ron and Hermione send him thoughtful letters. The entire Weasley family wins the Daily Prophet Prize and immediately meets him in London, showing just genuine, profound concern for his well-being, rescuing him from the Dursleys' neglect. This burgeoning sense of belonging with the Weasleys, and then later, that tantalizing hope of a true biological family connection with Sirius Black.
No.
It just underscores Harry's deep longing for a place where he truly belongs, free from the Dursleys' oppression and that lingering specter of loneliness.
Yeah, that longing is so central to his character arc.
Definitely. And finally, maybe a more subtle but equally significant theme that underpins the narrative is the nature of prophecy and prediction. You have this fascinating contrast between Professor Trelawney's divination class with its overtly dramatic, subjective, and let's be honest, often fraudulent pronouncements versus the actual rare, powerful, and often misunderstood prophecies that truly impact the magical world. Trelawney's flamboyant, grim predictions for Harry, for instance, are immediately dismissed by Hermione as ridiculous and woolly, highlighting the subjective and, well, performative nature of everyday divination. She's putting on a show.
Hermione's having none of it.
Not at all. Yet the book later reveals that Trelawney did give a rare, genuine prediction, one she doesn't even recall saying about Voldemort's return and his servant rejoining him, which is huge. This stark dichotomy forces us to consider the difference between genuine foresight and mere charlatanism, and how easily genuine truth can be overlooked or dismissed simply by its presentation or by who's delivering it. What this all highlights, we kind of connect this to the bigger picture, is an important question for all of us, really. How much are our own truths shaped by what we want to believe, by our biases, or by what we're told to believe by influential media or authority figures, rather than, objective, verifiable evidence? It's a mirror to our own information-saturated world, isn't it?
Absolutely. That distinction between true prophecy and just the theatrical performance of it is brilliant, and it absolutely sets up our Antivision segment perfectly. Here's where it gets really interesting, because we're going to challenge a fundamental perception, a really common one. Let's play devil's advocate for a moment with Professor Snape. Commonly, we perceive him as purely evil, right? A vindictive bully who harbors this baseless, irrational hatred for Harry, just mean for the sake of being mean. But what if that's far too simplistic? What if he's a character driven by something much, much more complex, if still deeply flawed and arguably pathological? My antivision is this. Snape's intense, almost obsessive hatred for Sirius Black, and paradoxically, his often begrudging and hidden protection of Harry. What if they're actually two sides of the very same deeply scarred coin, both rooted in his profound traumatic relationship with James and Lily Potter?
Okay. That's a bold take. Go on.
Well, think about his actions. Some of them seem to contradict this pure villain image we have. When Professor Lupin is ill, Snape offers to brew an entire cauldron full of his wolfsbane potion for him. Now, okay, it's delivered with a sneer, and it's certainly not out of kindness.
Definitely not kindness, no.
Right. But it is an act of reluctant care, maybe, or at least professional responsibility, or perhaps even a deep-seated desire to appear competent to Dumbledore. It's not purely malicious. More profoundly, he has this unwavering, deep-seated conviction that Black tried to kill me when they were 16. An event Dumbledore himself acknowledges, saying, "My memory is as good as it ever was, Severus." This isn't just some schoolboy grudge he's holding on to. This implies a very real personal trauma, a near-death experience that would undoubtedly fuel a powerful, lifelong motivation for his actions against Black. That's got to leave a mark. When Harry disarms him in the Shrieking Shack, Snape's furious, almost primal reaction is, "Vengeance is very sweet. How I hoped I would be the one to catch you."
That's not just general malice towards anyone associated with James. It's deeply personal. It's a vendetta aimed squarely at Black. Okay, I see where you're going with the trauma angle.
And when he argues fiercely with Fudge, wanting Harry suspended for consorting with a werewolf and a murderer, he's not just being self-serving, though he probably is partly. It also reflects this rigid desire for order and perhaps a warped, deeply misguided sense of protecting the rules against perceived threats. Even if he's tragically wrong about Black's guild, he fundamentally believes Black is a threat to Hogwarts, to the students, and maybe even, in his twisted way, to the boy he secretly protects because he's Lily's son. It's a twisted sense of justice, a self-appointed role as a vigilante against his perceived tormentor, fueled by past trauma.
That's a compelling argument, actually, because it forces us to unpack the layers of Snape's motivation. It definitely raises an important question. Does Snape's intense commitment to catching Black, even to the point where Fudge thinks he's unbalanced, does it truly stem from a pure, unblemished sense of duty to the Ministry? Or is it fundamentally driven by that deep-seated personal wound related to Lily Potter and his long-standing bitter rivalry with James? It's arguably both, I suppose, but I'd contend the personal aspect is far more potent and, well, corrosive for him. You can vividly see Snape's internal conflict and his profoundly warped sense of duty when he stands in for Lupin in the Defense Against the Dark Arts class. Remember that?
Oh yeah, the werewolf lesson.
It's exactly. He specifically singles out Harry, makes insulting comments about his father's past, and chooses to teach them about werewolves, a really pointed, almost cruel choice given Lupin's condition. It's targeted. And his eagerness to see Black get the Dementor's kiss, is it pure sadism? Or is it this twisted desire for justice for the Potters, a vengeance he believes is righteous, albeit based on profoundly incomplete and biased information? From Snape's deeply wounded perspective, he truly believes Black betrayed Lily, the one person he seemed to care about, and this fuels his relentless, almost fanatical pursuit. He might even see himself, in his own dark, convoluted way, as a protector of Harry, because Harry is Lily's son, while simultaneously loathing Harry for being James's son, and a constant living reminder of his past trauma and humiliation.
Wow, so it's this constant internal war.
Pretty much. It challenges us, the listeners, to consider that even characters we easily categorize as villains or bullies often have complex, albeit dark, motivations that are, from their warped perspective, understandable, even if their actions are utterly unjustifiable. It's a tragic study in how personal history can just distort one's moral compass and perception of reality. He's trapped by his past.
That perspective on Snape is so crucial, isn't it? Inviting us to look beyond just the surface-level bully. Now let's pivot. Let's turn our empathic gaze to a character often overlooked, dismissed, or perhaps even despised. Reduced to little more than a cowardly plot device, Peter Pettigrew. We often see him as simply a cringing, opportunistic traitor, a no-account, good-for-nothing, lazy scrounger, as Aunt Marge so kindly puts it, or later Sirius Black calls him a cringing bit of filth. For 12 years, he's just Ron's battered, useless rat, Scabbers, easy to hate, easy to dismiss. But what if we try to understand the sheer, suffocating, all-consuming terror that likely drove his actions?
Okay, an empathy dive for Pettigrew. This should be interesting.
Well, my thinking is this. Peter's primary driver isn't malice. It isn't some grand evil ambition like Voldemort. It's an overwhelming, debilitating, almost pathological fear, particularly of Voldemort. Think about his immediate, desperate terror and frantic attempts to escape when he's finally revealed in the Shrieking Shack. He's practically melting down. "Remus!" gasped Pettigrew, with beads of sweat breaking out over his pasty face. "You don't believe him, do you? He tried to kill me, Remus." Then, with increasing hysteria, he killed Lily and James, and now he's going to kill me too. "You gotta help me, Remus!" It's pure panic. His immediate groveling and abject pleas for mercy when faced with death or Azkaban are nothing short of pathetic, really. "Sirius, it's me. It's Peter, your friend. You wouldn't..." And then begging Harry. "Harry, James wouldn't have wanted me killed. James would have understood, Harry. He would have shown me mercy."
He plays every angle, doesn't he? Appealing to friendship, to mercy, to Harry's dad.
Exactly. Anything to survive. And Lupin himself observes, with a degree of, I think, weary understanding. "I must admit, Peter, I have difficulty in understanding why an innocent man would want to spend 12 years as a rat." This isn't really an accusation of malice, is it? It implies that Peter's decision to hide for 12 years was purely about self-preservation, about surviving at any cost, not necessarily out of inherent evil. His fear-driven choices lead him to rationalize his betrayal with these desperate, flimsy arguments. "If Voldemort's supporters were after me, it was because I put one of their best men in Azkaban the spy, Sirius Black." It's such a desperate attempt to justify his long hiding, to make himself seem less villainous and more a victim of circumstance, when in reality he chose the path of least resistance, a path paved with terrible betrayal. He's not a hero, obviously, but he's also maybe not just a caricature of evil, he's fear personified.
That truly reframes him, doesn't it? When you focus solely on the fear aspect. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it raises an incredibly important question. How does profound existential fear, especially of a figure as terrifying and absolute as Voldemort, actually corrupt individuals and lead them to unthinkable betrayals? Peter's choice of complete anonymity as a common rat for 12 years. It indicates an almost pathological fundamental desire to simply survive above all else. Even at the profound cost of his own identity, his friendships, his loyalty, everything. His actions weren't really about gaining power or actively inflicting harm, were they? They were solely about escaping a horrifying, terrifyingly painful fate at Voldemort's hands. Pure survival instinct, warped and amplified.
Yeah, survival at its most base level.
Which leads us to a fascinating philosophical query, I think. Is cowardice truly the diametric opposite of bravery? Or is it simply a different, albeit extreme and ultimately destructive response to an overwhelming existential threat? And how does understanding Pettigrew through this lens affect our judgment of his actions? Knowing that he was utterly consumed by terror rather than driven by active, malicious intent, does it change anything? His fear also contrasts sharply with, say, the Dursleys' more petty, mundane fear of magic, or even Harry's courageous, defiant fear of the Dementors. It highlights the vastly different responses individuals can have to overwhelming threats. Peter Pettigrew isn't just a convenient plot device that explains Sirius Black's predicament. He's a deeply tragic, almost pitiable cautionary tale about the corrosive, utterly dehumanizing power of fear when it completely trumps all other values, leading one to abandon friendship, loyalty, even their own self-respect, all in the desperate name of survival. He becomes a shell of a person, defined solely by his terror.
Powerful stuff indeed. Wow. Gives you a lot to think about, doesn't it? Puts a different spin on him. Now, let's shift our focus slightly. Let's talk about something many readers, even ardent fans who've reread this book countless times, might have zoomed right past or never fully appreciated. I'm talking about the subtle yet profoundly impactful symbolism woven into the appearances and disappearances of Harry's Patronus, and maybe even the curious dual nature of the Whomping Willow, these details that might seem small but aren't.
Okay, what they missed.
Oh,
I like
yeah?
this.
Right, so first let's talk about the Grim and the Patronus evolution. Remember that gigantic, shaggy black dog Harry saw lurking in Magnolia Crescent? And then again, chillingly, on the cover of Death Omens in Flourish and Blots. Professor Trelawney, in her characteristic dramatic fashion, interprets it as the worst omen of death. It's introduced as this recurring, terrifying symbol of dread, foreshadowing an imminent end for Harry. Very ominous. But then we witness Harry's arduous struggle with the Patronus charm itself. Initially, it's nothing more than an indistinct silvery shadow or a semi-transparent cloud, right? Feeble and incredibly draining for him to produce. Harry even voices this poignant internal conflict, thinking he'd never be able to produce a proper Patronus if he half wanted to hear his parents again. He's literally clinging to the echoes of their voices, finding a strange solace in the very fear he needs to overcome. It's quite complex.
That's such a powerful psychological insight into his struggle.
Isn't it? Then comes the pivotal, absolutely electrifying moment. Harry's initial belief that his father, James Potter, conjured that incredibly powerful Patronus across the lake to save him and Sirius from the Dementors. It's a moment of profound hope and relief. His dad saved him. Only later, through the bewildering magic of the Time Turner, does he have that stunning realization. He hadn't seen his father, he had seen himself, and that he was the one who conjured that blinding, dazzling silver animal. It looked like a horse, though later clarified as a stag, of course.
Prongs, his father's animagus form.
Exactly, prongs. The revelation isn't just a clever plot device for the time travel loop. It means Harry's true power, his deepest protective instinct, his unwavering courage. It literally comes from within him. He embodies his father's protective nature and courage, completely defying the death omen of the Grim. The symbol of impending death transforms into this powerful symbol of inherited life, strength, and ultimately self-rescue. It's amazing.
Oh, what's truly fascinating here is how the narrative brilliantly, almost poetically, transforms a symbol of dread the Grim into this radiant beacon of hope and inherited strength. It's a beautiful piece of symbolic storytelling. The black dog, initially presented as a terrifying portent of death for Harry, becomes the very essence of his father's protective spirit, manifested not just by Harry, but through Harry himself. He becomes the stag. This is such a powerful, deeply personal coming-of-age moment where Harry literally becomes his own rescuer. By time traveling, yes, but more importantly, by embodying the courage he thought came from an external source, his dad. He conjures the Patronus he initially thought was his father's. He doesn't just passively receive his father's legacy, he actively embodies it. He becomes the protector, not merely the protected. It's an internal revelation externalized in the most magical way possible.
Beautifully put. And then there's the other thing you mentioned, the Whomping Willow's dual role, which is just subtle genius in Rowling's world building, I think. Initially, it's seen by the reader and by Harry as merely destructive and dangerous. It famously smashed Harry's Nimbus 2000 in the previous book, right?
Yeah.
It acts as this formidable, violent obstacle on the grounds.
Yeah, just pure hazard.
But then, in this book, it's revealed to be much more. It's a secret portal, a hidden gateway to the Shrieking Shack. It provides crucial clandestine passage for Lupin, for Pettigrew, and for Black, and later for Harry, Ron, and Hermione. This single tree is simultaneously a formidable barrier and a secret gateway. Destructive when uncontrolled, but revealing vital truths and providing necessary passage when its secrets are understood. You just need to know how to calm it down.
Press the knot at the base.
Right. It highlights that seemingly random or ominous events or objects in the magical world can have hidden meanings or dual functions, only revealed with a broader perspective and deeper understanding.
It's like a cosmic Rorschach test, almost, where what you see initially might be pure danger or just a nuisance, but with insight, it transforms into a pathway to truth, or maybe even a source of courage. And we absolutely cannot overlook the subtle yet crucial detail that Crookshanks, Hermione's much-maligned cat, is instrumental in navigating the Whomping Willow by pressing that knot.
Ah, good point.
It shows his incredible intelligence and agency beyond being just a cat. He's a key player in unlocking its secret. He figures it out.
That's such a great point about Crookshanks. He's far more than just a feline companion, isn't he? He's practically an agent in his own right. Now, speaking of crucial decisions in the unlocking of secrets, let's jump into our mini debate. This one cuts right to the core of Harry's character and the profound moral stakes of the story. I'm talking about Harry's decision, not allowing Sirius and Lupin to kill Peter Pettigrew in the Shrieking Shack.
Ah, yes. The big moment.
The big moment. One could strongly argue, and many readers often do, that it's a moment of naive, even foolish idealism on Harry's part, especially given the monstrous depth of Pettigrew's betrayal. I mean, this guy got his parents killed. Isn't it perfectly obvious that Peter, a man who, as Sirius snarls, would have seen you die too without turning a hair, deserved immediate, violent retribution? Justice demands it, doesn't it? What is the point of justice if not swift, decisive action against such a despicable betrayer? Think of the raw emotion in that shack. The overwhelming calls for vengeance. Sirius himself, haunted by 12 years of wrongful imprisonment, screams, "This piece of vermin is the reason you have no parents." Even Hagrid, earlier in the series, expressed a similar sentiment about Black, saying, "If I'd got to Black before little Pettigrew did, I wouldn't have messed around with wands, I'd ripped him limb from limb." The emotional, visceral argument for immediate execution is incredibly strong. So why, in the face of such overwhelming betrayal and loss, would Harry choose mercy? Potentially letting a dangerous traitor go free again. It seems almost reckless.
That's a powerful and honestly understandable stance. It's rooted in justifiable anger and grief, absolutely. But I'd argue it's precisely at this moment, with all that raw emotion swirling around, that Harry's decision about Peter Pettigrew transcends youthful naivete. It becomes a profound, defining statement about the kind of wizard he chooses to be. And it's a choice that fundamentally differentiates him from Voldemort and his Death Eaters. My counterstance is that Harry's choice here demonstrates a crucial, almost precocious moral maturity. It actively prevents his saviors, Sirius and Lupin, from becoming murderers themselves, which would have irrevocably stained their character, blurred their moral lines, and potentially set them down a dark, vengeful path. They were ready to do it.
They absolutely were ready to kill him right there.
Yeah. And Harry explicitly articulates his reasoning, cutting through that emotional haze. "I'm not doing this for you," he tells Pettigrew. "I'm doing it because I don't reckon my dad would have wanted them to become killers just for you." This act isn't for Pettigrew, who certainly doesn't deserve it, or Harry's compassion. Not at all. Rather, it's for Harry's parents' memory, for their ideals, and crucially, for the moral integrity of Sirius and Lupin. He's saving them as much as he's sparing Pettigrew. It's a profound rejection of vengeance and a steadfast commitment to a higher form of justice specifically, handing Pettigrew over to the Dementors in Azkaban. Let the system deal with him.
Which arguably is a fate worse than death.
Possibly. What's truly fascinating here is that Harry, who has every conceivable reason for vengeance given his parents' brutal murder at Pettigrew's betrayal, chooses incredible restraint. It's a powerful moment that foreshadows his enduring moral compass against Voldemort's kill-or-be-killed philosophy, which thrives on these endless cycles of violence. It's like Harry saying, we are not going to sink to his level or Voldemort's level. He understands that becoming a killer, even for a just cause in that moment, would be a betrayal of his parents' fundamental ideals. It's a moment where he truly becomes James's son, not by imitating his recklessness, perhaps, but by holding a deeper moral code.
I can absolutely see that. And when you frame it that way, it's not just an act of mercy, is it? It's a foundational moment that defines Harry's character, setting him on a distinctly different path from Voldemort. It's a powerful internal declaration. Okay, let's zoom out now for our meta-take segment. So what does all this mean for us, the readers, living in today's world and maybe looking toward the future? How does Prisoner of Azkaban, a fantasy novel written years ago, continue to comment on our own society in such strikingly relevant ways?
It really does, surprisingly so.
One of the most glaring commentaries, which sadly feels perpetually relevant, is on justice and due process, or the lack thereof. The stark portrayal of Sirius Black's conviction without trial, based almost entirely on flimsy circumstantial evidence and overwhelming public outcry. It's chillingly familiar, isn't it? Fudge's biased narrative, which is immediately accepted and broadcast by the Prophet, posits that Black was tired of his double agent role. He was ready to declare his support openly for you-know-who, and he seems to have planned this for the moment of the Potter's death. This is presented as unassailable fact. Even when Dumbledore quietly believes Harry and Hermione, admitting with a sigh, "But I have no power to make other men see the truth or to overrule the Minister of Magic," he is powerless against the system. Black himself, utterly broken by the injustice, refuses to even acknowledge Pettigrew, saying there's enough filth on my robes without you touching them, embodying the utter lack of dignity and due process he's endured for 12 years. This is directly relevant to real-world issues where reputations are destroyed and lives are derailed by public narratives and, well, institutional inertia.
Indeed. This really raises an important question for us today. In a world saturated with information and critically misinformation, how do we discern truth? Especially when powerful institutions or popular narratives benefit from maintaining a false one. It's harder than ever. The book is a potent, almost prescient allegory for the perils of authority and official narratives. Cornelius Fudge's character is just a masterclass in how leaders can, perhaps unconsciously, perhaps not, prioritize public image and political expediency over truth and justice. He's far more concerned with saving face and maintaining order. Practically giddy as he says, "This whole Black affair has been highly embarrassing. I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to informing the Daily Prophet that we've got him at last." Relief, not justice, is his priority.
He just wants it over with.
Exactly. He quickly dismisses Harry and Hermione's eyewitness testimony, suggesting Harry is confused or Hermione is disturbed in her mind due to Black's bewitchment. Anything to avoid the truth. Because accepting their inconvenient story would mean admitting a huge, politically damaging governmental error, a massive failure of justice. This directly connects to contemporary issues like the perils of trial by public opinion, or what we now sometimes term cancel culture, where individuals can be demonized and condemned without proper investigation, often based on popular belief or prejudiced narratives amplified by media, social, or otherwise. Sirius Black's story serves as a stark reminder of how easily public fervor can overshadow due process, and how a comfortable official like Fudge will prioritize his reputation over uncovering uncomfortable truths. It speaks volumes about governmental accountability, or the distinct lack thereof, when those in power prefer to maintain a flawed status quo rather than dig for truth that might disrupt their comfortable reality.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the government or public opinion either. The book also subtly but profoundly touches on the double-edged sword of secrecy. Think about Hermione's time turner. While it's an incredible magical artifact that allows her to attend multiple classes and, crucially, later helps her save Sirius and Buckbeak, it comes at a significant personal cost. She's on an impossible schedule, remember. Ron points out she's down for about 10 subjects a day. And by the end of the year, she literally has shadows like lupins under her eyes and seemed constantly close to tears. The sheer burden of maintaining that secret, of living a double life, it exhausts her physically and mentally. There's a real toll.
Yeah, you really see her cracking under the strain.
You do. And similarly, Lupin's werewolf condition is this carefully guarded secret for years that, once revealed by Snape's ill-intentioned slip of the tongue, forces his immediate resignation. "My condition is incurable, and I am, of course, a danger to everyone around me once a month," he states with such sad resignation. This deeply personal secret, while protecting him from prejudice and allowing him to teach for a time, ultimately isolates him and leads to his painful departure once it's out in the open. The community rejects him. It highlights the profound personal cost of maintaining privacy in a scrutinizing, fear-driven world.
The burden of secrets, as you point out, is a really profound aspect here. Hermione's mental and physical toll from her time turner secret, or Lupin's forced resignation once his condition is known. It highlights the immense personal cost of maintaining privacy and suppressing one's true nature in a scrutinizing world, particularly when that world is steeped in fear and prejudice, like the wizarding world is towards werewolves. It implies that while secrets can offer protection in the short term, they often isolate individuals and can lead to misunderstandings or dangers when they inevitably come to light. Looking ahead, this book's enduring relevance lies in its piercing commentary on how unchecked authority and pervasive societal fear can lead to systemic injustices.
And conversely, how individual acts of courage, like Dumbledore's quiet, unwavering belief in Harry's account, or Harry's profound moral stand against killing Pettigrew, are crucial for chipping away at these deeply entrenched, often invisible systems of oppression and misinformation. It's a stark reminder, really, that even in a magical world, the most dangerous curses aren't always spells or dark magic. Sometimes they're the self-imposed blind spots, the willful ignorance, and the deeply ingrained prejudices we allow to fester, shaping our perception of truth, justice, and even ourselves.
Wow, okay, what an incredible ride this deep dive into Prisoner of Azkaban has been. It truly goes to show how much more there is beneath the surface of stories we think we know so well. As we wrap up, here's a question for you, our listener, to ponder long after our conversation fades. What if Harry, in that pivotal moment in the Shrieking Shack, hadn't chosen mercy for Peter Pettigrew? What if he had instead allowed Sirius and Lupin to carry out their vengeance right then and there? How would that singular choice, that embrace of retribution rather than restraint, have fundamentally altered Harry's own destiny, his moral compass, and perhaps the entire trajectory of the war against Voldemort? Would Harry have become a different kind of hero, or perhaps something far darker down the line? It's a thought that truly ripples through the entire saga, I think.
That's a heavy what if. Really makes you think.
It does. Now, if you enjoyed dissecting these layers of perception, justice, and the complexities of unlikely friendships, I have a quirky recommendation for you. Check out the sprawling, imaginative graphic novel series Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. It's got family drama on an epic scale, interstellar war, bizarre aliens, and moral ambiguities that will make you question everything you thought you knew about good and evil, all set in a universe that somehow makes the wizarding world look positively mundane.
High praise indeed.
It is. Think Romeo and Juliet meets Star Wars, meets a truly wild, slightly NSFW intergalactic garage sale. It's an absolute masterpiece of visual storytelling and complex characters. Highly recommend Saga.
Sounds amazing. And, this deep dive, I hope, has shown us all that even the most familiar stories hold new truths, new insights, new challenges, if we just dare to look beyond the surface, if we dare to question our initial assumptions. Critical thinking isn't just for academic texts. It's absolutely essential in a world saturated with information and overload. And even in the most beloved works of fiction, like this one, there's always more to learn and more to question. We genuinely encourage you to maybe reread Prisoner of Azkaban, or at least these chapters, with some of these fresh perspectives in mind. See if you find your own hidden layers. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep reading, keep questioning, and keep exploring.